Three, two, and one. Welcome back, listeners, to the Media Files podcast. This is just another solo episode. Don't know when this is going to get posted. Again, hopefully, before you're listening to this one, we have another episode with all three of us together. We're planning some things for October. Hopefully some gameplays, hopefully some reactions, things along those lines. But I kind of just wanted to hop on here real quick while I have the time and just kind of the piece around to be able to record without any issues. Last episode that I did, I pulled a topic from this website. The last one was the fan service thing. And then I was like, you know what? I want to record again today. And I came back to this website to, kind of take a look and see what other topics they had. Some of the topics I don't really care too much for. And some of them I feel like, I'm not going to say they're not debated, but I don't feel like they have that big of an impact on anything and everything that we do as anime. The ones particular is this one: can Bleach characters move faster than light? Who cares? Like, I think it's absolutely ludicrous that we are so hung up on these nuances of trying to quantify how powerful characters are compared to our real world when they're fictional characters. Now, I was going to talk about this isekai, but I feel like I've talked this topic off a cliff during one of our previous episodes with all three of us. We were talking about anime tropes, things that we feel are unnecessary or stupid. So I was just scrolling through here, trying to think of a topic for today. And I came down here to the bottom of this website. And over here, you guys may see to the right, this one, 50 strongest anime characters of all time ranked. Now, I'm going to close this and just kind of leave it on this. Again, wallpaper engine. I love this thing. These are just some of the beautiful backgrounds that you see with that. So if you don't have it, I would recommend it. And you can make your own and put them on there. It's like a creative outlet. But the reason why they kind of struck me the wrong way, and I'm not saying this in a terrible way, but it always leads back to Dragon Ball Super for me. Now, I don't know if you guys know about Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. I'm pretty sure most people have heard of it or seen it. If you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, you've probably heard of it or seen it in some shape, or form. There are countless Dragon Ball Z games. We have Dragon Ball Z Sparkling Zero that's coming out next month. Xenoverse 2. There was a Dragon Ball Z Online that was only released overseas, and I think people worked on and allowed it to be translated to English to where we can use it over here and whatnot. We have a plethora of Dragon Ball Z games that span from the Game Boy Color up until more recent consoles. I feel like Dragon Ball Z is one of those series that has been on every single console in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying every single console, but it feels like that. Like, it feels like if you had a PlayStation, there was a Dragon Ball game. If you had a GameCube, there was a Dragon Ball Z game for it. If you had a Game Boy Advance, Dragon Ball Z game. If there was a Game Boy Color, there was something for it. And even if it wasn't directly Dragon Ball Z, you could feel that there was some form of inspiration to it. Now, why am I talking about Dragon Ball Z? I feel like we talk about Dragon Ball Z a lot on this channel. And don't get me wrong, I love Dragon Ball. I love Dragon Ball Z. Excuse me, sorry. Just ate. But we talk about that a lot because it is the series we grew up with. And for me, grew up with Naruto, One Piece, and other series like that, including Bleach. And one thing I kind of wanted to talk about, and I feel like this sentiment has been echoed through a few creators and other people, but I kind of also want to toss my 2 cents into the ring as well. The reason why that list kind of rubbed me the wrong way is also kind of taking into account, and you see Beerus is like literally right there front and center. The reason why that kind of rubs me the wrong way is because I feel like as fans of media, manga, anime, books, whatever, I feel like we have this inability to let go of something, especially when it's something so near and dear to us. Now, you might be asking, what do you mean by that? What I mean is when it comes down to a series. So today, I read the final chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. A couple of weeks ago, I read the final chapter of My Hero Academia. Not even too long ago, I remember reading the last chapter of Demon Slayer, of Muyo and Roji. There are a lot of series that I've read that have ended. And we're in this era now, and I keep saying this, and I'm not saying people aren't taking this seriously, but here's something I want you guys to understand, and I echoed this kind of in my previous video. Some series just need to end. Longevity does not equate success. What longevity equates to is burnout. It's just like with life. Imagine this. You spend your entire life doing one single job. Like literally from the age of like 10 years old, you're doing the same thing all the time, every day, no matter what. You change a few things here and there, but at its essence, it is still the same thing. At some point, you will get tired of doing that thing, no matter how you try to dress it up, no matter how you try to change your perspective of it or make it seem like it's not that big of a deal. The point of the matter is, it is still the same thing in essence. It hasn't changed. You just kind of changed how you looked at it or how it's being presented to you or how other people are presenting it to you. And I say that because I feel like we have this terrible, I'm not going to say a terrible future, but I feel like we have this media like death that's occurring. Not just with movies, not just with TV shows. And people will say, oh, all the shows back in the day were so much better. There was so much more variety. There was so much. And I agree with that, to some extent. Not saying that every single show that came out back then was like, 100% likable, or it was on the air for like 50 seasons like The Simpsons. No. I feel like we definitely had a lot more variety back then. But a lot of it is also due to the fact that a lot of media was consumed in one single place. Now was on live television. Versus now, a lot of what we consume is through YouTube. I'm just being honest. And streaming services. And I said this the other day. I find it very interesting when I log into my Disney app that I'm seeing nothing but Hulu stuff. That's weird to me. When I log into Disney, my first thought is not American Horror Story. When I log into Disney, I think of fond memories of like Lion King, Lilo and Stitch, like fairy tale type of stories that are constructed around entertaining children. You get what I'm saying? Like Disney is not associated with like horror movies. They're not associated with horror scenes. Like the scariest movie they have is like The Nightmare Before Christmas. But even that is tamed to a certain point. And it was made by Tim Burton. Like, come on. The man's, he has his own style and it leans into the style of creepy. And you could even argue that a lot of like old movies, the way that like things were depicted and how people died, like it was pretty scary. But what I'm saying is it's not associated with like horror. Like if I want to watch Aliens, I don't go to Disney Plus. I'm just saying. But saying all that to say this, that a lot of streaming services now, like back in the day, it was like Netflix, Hulu kind of came along. These streaming giants were capable of standing on their own 2 feet. They did not require being attached to anybody else. But now, whenever you go to Disney's website, you are encouraged to buy the Disney Plus included with Hulu, Disney Plus included with HBO Max, Disney Plus included with all three of those things, and ESPN. But at some point in time, it was just Disney Plus. At one point in time, it was just Hulu. So why is it that these companies, these streaming apps, who were so proud of their, their hold on their specific properties, are now leaning on each other in order to survive? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I can't even remember the last time I was like, hey, I wonder what's on Hulu. I could barely remember the last time I logged on to Netflix and watched something that wasn't a movie that I haven't already seen. I mean, one reason why I still have Netflix is because of Stranger Things. I'm still waiting on that last season. If it is the last season, it might as well be as long as it's been. But what I'm saying is, long story short, some things kind of grow and then they eventually fade out of, notoriety, obscurity. Like it has been around long enough and it is gone. And you see that more and more with a lot of series, even with like video games. There's this sense of video games just can't be just that. And, we can get into the whole debate of how much video games actually cost or how much they should be charging the customer. My point of view of that is you can charge whatever you want for a video game, but people are not going to buy it. It's almost like with a home. Technically, the value of a property could be, quote unquote, whatever you want it to be. Because like when you go to a car dealership, you cannot quantify how much the mechanic's labor is. You can't quantify that. You can't say, oh, your labor should only be $10 because it shouldn't take you that long or you didn't do much work. You can't quantify that. So they try to make it as reasonable as possible. Because if you went to a car dealership and you're like, I just want my oil changed. They say the oil change is, let's say, $50 for you. And then you look at your bill and they're like, yeah, you owe us $500. You're like, $500? It was only $50 for the oil change. Yeah, it was $450 for the labor. And you're like, I'm not paying that. Then you're not getting your car. You see where I'm getting at? But video games versus your car service are two different things. You need your car to work so you can go to work, earn money, go places, do things. Your car is more of a necessity. Your car is more of a necessity to you versus a video game. And with video games, again, like with the home example, technically they could charge you whatever they want because they say it took us forever just to build this home. So we're tacking on, $50,000 or we're tacking on $200,000 to the price of the home because that's what we feel like our labor is worth. You can't quantify it. Because if you want to buy a house, let's say a 1-bedroom apartment, and you're like, well, to rent it is going to cost you $5,000 a month. And you're like, are you, going to wait on me hand and foot? Is there like free like lunch, breakfast, and dinner? Like as the price goes up, you expect more. And I think that's a legit criticism. As the price goes up of something, you're expecting more from it. I.e., if I go to the store and I buy toilet paper, right? There's 12 rolls in it. I buy toilet paper and it is priced at $8, right? So my thinking is, at this place, 12 packs or 12 rolls of toilet paper is worth $8. Now, if I go back and it is now up to $16 for the same 12 rolls, then you're looking at it and it's like, well, did the 12 rolls get bigger? No. Well, do I get a discount or something? No. So then you look for something cheaper. i.e., if game companies charge, let's say $150 for a game, right? Which some creep up to that with the pre-orders and all the other stuff and DLCs and all that put up together. But with all of that, you put all that into, like you try to quantify the labor and all that stuff into it. You're like, okay, the game is $150, right? Okay. And then you go to your Steam workshop and you're like, okay, I could spend $150 for this game that more than likely will have microtransactions, have DLC that I will have to pay for, and so on and so forth. But then there's this game, I'm just going to use Minecraft as an example, where I can buy it once. There are mods that I can use for free that the community creates to change how the game is played and, just increase your enjoyment of the property that much longer. So $150 for that or $30 for an experience that can change based on what I want it to be. Because you can make your own mods too. But with that $150, it's like it's our controlled property. You don't get to do anything with it. We hold all the reins. You don't get any like creative freedom. We do everything for you. So if you want something, you can voice your opinion, but it's ultimately our decision at the end of the day. And I think that sucks. So yeah, we could say that game developers should charge more for their games, and that's fine. You could say that. But if you charge $150 for a game and only 20 people buy it, are you really making your money? There has to be this balance. And I mean, even with like Sparkling Zero coming out, I said I'm buying that game Frame 1 because I love the Tenkaichi series. But yeah, saying all that to, kind of circle back to the idea of we're in a media drought. And you might say, but we got new movies, we got this and that. But I'm like, but a lot of it is just the rehash of something already made. And a lot of people can say, but, we took inspiration from like other things back in the day. And yes, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is there's a lot more focus on things that have already been established. In my last episode, I talked about the One Piece remake. And I said, I don't think it's fair that a new One Piece series is being made when One Piece is already an established IP. One Piece is very, very popular. It is still ongoing. It has droves and droves of fans. Why in the world are you making a new series for a show that has already been through the ringer? Do you know how many episodes there are of One Piece? A lot. Too many to count. And you're telling me you're going to remake all that? Get out of here. And anyone who justifies it is like, but why? Just like the whole with the isekai example, it's like, why waste your resources on shows that have already been established? How about going back? We're always talking about like, let's introduce it to a new audience. You don't have to. The episodes are there. The chapters are there. Start from chapter 1 like all the rest of us did. You are not special, is what I want to say. And that's typically how I feel. You are not special. Start from chapter 1 like the rest of us. How about bringing back series that have not had the love or were canceled prematurely? Because in the video where I talked about longevity, I talked about, where series are being cut very quickly with Shonen Jump. And a lot of the series I read now are like just, on random platforms. Like I'm not going to Shonen Jump with excitement anymore. That's just me. But the point of the matter is, man, the point of the matter still stands that some series just need to die. Some of them just need to end. And we need to stop acting like if they end, it's going to be the end of the world for us. I can't wait for One Piece to end. I love One Piece, don't get me wrong. I stick with it every week, but there does come a point of where it's like, okay, like it's, and I'm not saying like enough is enough. I'm like, we should be reaching that point because like, I don't want it to be like, yeah, before One Piece is over, we're all dead and gone. Like, that would be the worst. Nothing is worse than a series that has an unfulfilling ending or rushed ending at that. Again, go back to the longevity talk I had. But the most important thing is that series are able to end and are able to end before they get out of hand. And I'm bringing that up mostly because of Dragon Ball Z. Because I feel like Dragon Ball Z, along with One Piece, along with Naruto, because Boruto is Naruto, just with a B. That's interesting. And I feel like we need to get out of this mindset that these series just need to stay around forever. No, they don't. Here's the thing, fans, listeners, listen. Just because something is popular does not mean that it needs to continue creating new content in order for you to love it. I'm going to say that again. Just because you love a series does not mean it needs to continuously be updated. New stuff needs to be added in order for you to love it. I still go back and play old Game Boy Advance games that I love to play back in the day. There's nothing new about it. There's nothing fantastic about it. It's just an old game that I really, really loved. If they made a remake of it, okay, cool, whatever. But as long as I have access to it and I can go back and play it again, I'm going to go do that. There's this misconception that Dragon Ball Z needs to stay around forever. Just like with One Piece, just like with Naruto, or whatever other series you feel that is, staying around too long. Bleach got out of there real quick. And they should have. Like, I felt like Bleach was cool back in the day because, we all love those samurai type of anime. Like, now that I think about it, Bleach really reminded me of Inuyasha. Like, the big sword and like unruly hair and the kind of baggy like outfit or whatever. Inuyasha's was red and Ichigo is just black. I never really thought of it that way. And they're fighting demons too, so yeah, that's cool. But whatever series you feel like is like going on, and I feel like is hard to miss. I play a game, like I said, Dokkan Battle, and I feel like a lot of times I just deleted that game from my phone. And I did that because I feel like I spent too much time and resources into it for a mobile game at that. Again, using that mindset. If Dokkan Battle wanted to keep going on, they could make money forever. They could. I mean, as long as people have phones and are able to spend their money. And actually have, the ability to, work and, get all that other stuff. But my thing is, as long as Dragon Ball Z continues to go on, then games will continue to be made. And I said I'm excited about Sparkling Zero. I am, because I love the Tenkaichi series. I love the Budokai Tenkaichi series. But it's also kind of bittersweet. Bittersweet, again, because of the passing of the creator, which, again, I feel like once the creator passes away, the series should end. That's just me. Don't prolong something that you didn't have any hand in making. We're all sad. It all freaking sucks. But have that respect and allow the series to be with the creator. Because I can guarantee you that we would still love Dragon Ball if GT wasn't made, if Super wasn't made, if Daima, whatever it's called, is being made. Like, I feel like Dragon Ball Z has been morphed and, like, just made into this monster of where there's so many connecting parts or so many branching paths that it feels like Marvel for whatever weird reason. And I stopped reading Dragon Ball as Super started. Like, I watched up until the Tournament of Power because it looked cool. And I was still in the military around that time. So anime was just our way of bonding for whatever weird reason. And it was cool. But even now, as I'm looking back at it, there are a lot of things that I'm like, I don't understand. Things that don't really make a lot of sense to me. And again, I'm not shaming anyone for liking Super. I don't want to do that. Like, you've heard on here that we all have our own opinions of Super. Some of us like it, some of us don't. I feel like I have two reasons that I don't like it. My main reason is burnout. As I grow older and as I've experienced a lot of different things, I'm looking for something new. I'm looking for something new to kind of take that place of Dragon Ball. I'm just burned out. Like, my gamers in the audience, listeners, if you play Minecraft, you play it and you play it, and you know, every now and then, like, there was a point where it was the only game you played. But at some point, you're like, I've done as much as I could. I've done everything that I feel like I can do. I've played mods that are, you know, that add something new to the game, but it's still fundamentally the same thing. Or mods that change the game up completely, but you still feel like I'm still just playing Minecraft. So you know, take a break from it. And you know, you come back every now and then. Like, your frequency of playing it changes. Because you indulged in it for so long that eventually you just kind of get tired of this. You know, it's like eating, if you had to eat spaghetti, or no, let's say a Hot Pocket every morning for 5 years, eventually you'd be like you could probably physically get sick from it. I remember I used to eat ramen so much, like the pack ramen, to where when I had it, I got sick. Not like, you know, throwing up or anything, but like I felt nauseous from it. Like, I can eat ramen now, but I barely touch it. So you get what I'm saying? Like, that burnout is real. I'm tired of hearing Dragon Ball this, Dragon Ball that. Dragon Ball Dokkan has 50 new characters. Dragon Ball Legends is dropping Turtles or UI Goku. We have a new Dragon Ball Z game that's coming out. I remember when Fighters came out and that was the only thing people could talk about. Until Dragon Ball Fighters went silent. And then, like, oh, when Sparkling Zero was announced, now they come out of the woodworks with like this big old patch. And I said this, and I told the guys this. I was like, what they should have done if they really cared about the game, if they were spending all this time working on this big old patch, what they should have done was release those changes like in increments. Because after Lab Coat Android 21 was released, nothing else released. It was just quiet, dead silence. And then out of nowhere, it's like, hey guys, we're still here. But it kind of felt like you just abandoned the fans. If you release things slowly, people still feel like you care and that you're there. The moment you go silent for longer than a month, 2 months, people start to wonder, this game's been abandoned, hasn't it? Like, no game is perfect, especially not fighters, when it comes down to when you are competing against other people. There will be bugs, there will be errors, there's always going to be constant work on the game. especially since it is sold through Steam and other digital platforms. It will be a continuous work. So show that you're continuously working on it. Because people will buy games in early access, and then it's like, well, the developer hasn't said or done anything for over 3 months or 4 months or a year. This game's been abandoned. I think that's a good indicator that it's been abandoned. So yeah, just that burnout. Like everyone's excitement and love for it is very different. But for me, I'm tired of Dragon Ball. I'm genuinely tired of it. I love it, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll go back and watch Dragon Ball Z every now and then, just, or I'll play like, Dragon Ball Tenkaichi Budokai Tenkaichi on the PlayStation 2. Like, I still love it to that point. And I played Xenoverse. I got tired of that eventually too. But they still release DLC and like all this other stuff for it, and it's like, but why? Like, and that's the other part. So the first part is burnout. The other part is exploitation. As long as the Dragon Ball series continues, Dragon Ball Z games will continue to thrive. And when I say thrive, I don't mean for the betterment of the fan base. I mean thrive for the companies that produce it. You get what I'm saying? Like, another reason why I'm like, I don't really, like, I like Sparkling Zero, but I'm like, I'm not really into it. The reason why is because it's a new way to fight, one. But I also said, I don't want to replay the story for the 15th, 20th time. Like with the Naruto Ninja Storm series. The story starts off, obviously, from the first episode. And as the games continue and they add more and more to it, the quality of those episodes, the cutscenes and all that, kind of falter. Especially with the last one they made. I heard that one was terrible. It was like a step, like 5 steps back in fidelity and the graphical elements, and the gameplay, those type of things. Because I also feel like game developers misunderstand that just because you have a lot of characters in the game does not make it good. You could have a Dragon Ball Z game that only has 20 characters and it'll be the best thing ever. Because of the mechanics, how it plays, how it looks, and all that other good stuff. Like, one thing I liked about the Tenkaichi games were like the what ifs stories. Like, that's a creative way to kind of prolong the story. Versus like, we're just going from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Super. Cool. And we're circling back to the exploitation part. But that's kind of the reason why I feel like it really needs to end. Because the longer a series goes on, the more a company feels like we can prolong your suffering. I deleted Dokkan today because I feel like, again, I spent too much time and resources into a game that as soon as they take that thing offline, you lose everything. And I mean everything. I'm not talking like there are these rewards and all the other stuff, but you are encouraged to spend money. You are encouraged to spend money. And you want to know why? Like, you might be saying, well, but you can control yourself. You can do this. You can do that. Sure, you can. But let me ask you this. How many of you guys play Dokkan Battle or Dragon Ball Legends who don't watch YouTubers who do the same thing? You get what I'm saying? Like, I play Dokkan Battle and there are YouTubers that I follow and watch who also play Dokkan Battle. Like, one guy I follow is Toon Rami. I follow him because I like his commentary. I like, the videos he makes and all that other good stuff. Nothing against him. But here's the thing that people have to realize. They become those YouTubers because they want to showcase the best of a game. Now, when you showcase the best of a game, that means you are willing to invest into it to a point of where you have everything you need. You get what I'm saying? So it's almost like this. If you have 2 Dokkan YouTubers, They both pull the same unit, right? Let's say the LR Tech Gogeta. I think he just got an Easy A or something. They both pull that character. And it's like one only pulled one copy. And then the other pulled multiple copies, has them rainbowed, and has all their links up to 10. As in, it is a maxed up unit. The best in every way. People are going to be more intrigued and interested in the person who literally got it to the best, because that's what everyone ultimately wants. Dokkan is like a card collecting game. You want every unit you can at the top of his game. You want it rainbowed. You want all the links up to 10. You want the best equipment put on it. And the same thing for Legends. I used to play Legends until I was like, playing against other people with bad connection is a terrible combination. And I like Dokkan because my success is dependent on me and RNG. So, yeah. I didn't like Legends because the only way I could really have fun was playing against other people, but other people playing through their... It was almost like playing with people who phones were potatoes. Like, huh? But again, Dokkan Battle can go on for a very, very long time. And that's concerning because the show never ends, that they don't have to end. There's no reason to. The point of the matter is that the length of a series can lead to dangerous opportunities. And some of you may agree, some of you may disagree. You're like, but that gives us new content that helps the game stay longer and all that. But why does a game need to stay around forever? Like, people play GTA forever because they had genuine fun with it. GTA is not a series or a show, so you can be a lot more creative with it. How many times can you play the same story over and over and over again until you're like, well, I'm just tired of it? And my thing, and you could say that with, like I said, with the Naruto franchise, they got new characters, new like chapters and everything. And my biggest concern, again, is like, here's the main point. My biggest concern, and I said this with the Super Series. Now, when I looked on that list and I saw Beerus at the forefront, and I hear people say like, oh, he's the strongest character. You got Whis, who's like the strongest character. And my problem with that, just hear me out, is that they never should have introduced them. Because, and this is me again, this is just my logic speaking here. When in the Dragon Ball series, the Goku or any of the Z fighters, when were they ever acquainted with someone who was so immeasurably stronger than them? Like, tell me, because I'm curious. Like, don't say, oh, King Kai. Only thing King Kai did was teach Goku how to use the Kaioken and Spirit Bomb. He was there to teach him something. I don't think King Kai would have gone to Earth and beat the Saiyans. I don't think so, no. Like, he's not that immeasurably powerful. He was definitely not stronger than Frieza. Like, give me an example of somebody that Goku or the Z Fighters was acquainted with in Dragon Ball, in Dragon Ball Z, where that person was so immeasurably stronger that if a conflict or something came against the planet, that they could instantly fix it. And I say that because of, let's say, Resurrection F, where the Earth was destroyed and we rewind time. Huh? Why? And people will say, oh, but he only did that at one time. Listeners, Do not introduce something that you are not willing to justify. Do not introduce something you're not willing to defend. Because if you say this one time he only did it this once. He shouldn't have done it at all. The Future Saga. Goku literally had to rely on Zeno, the literal god, in order to beat Zamasu. And people are like, this is great storytelling. What? No, what? That's great storytelling. Okay, we all have our own opinions. I just don't feel that when you introduce something like that and you have a god of destruction, you have a angel, you have literal gods, two of them that are on good terms with Goku. Literally, if there's ever a conflict, Goku just press that little button, calls Zeno snaps him out of existence, and it's like, well, that was easy. That's not good storytelling. Because if you use a mechanic once, you can use it again. And I even said this too with the whole Dragon Balls thing. Like, don't use the Dragon Ball wishes to make a character stronger. I mean, we've seen it in Dragon Ball, but it was made in a way to where, okay, Demon King Piccolo just wished to be younger. He didn't wish to be stronger. He wished to be younger so he could return to his original power. Okay? That's different. And I'm always like, the Dragon Balls have been such a crutch for the series. What was the prize for the Tournament of Power? The super mega cosmic Dragon Balls. Really? To make any wish you want possible. Huh? Anywho. Again. Again, I never wanted to come off as if I hate a series or anything like that. People debate something to a point of where it's like they're literally fighting for their lives. And I don't get that. I think that's also the reason why I say, like, some series just need to end. Because if you're willing to go to bat this much for a character or a series when it is obviously something that's wrong, like, you cannot sit there and tell me that the introduction of gods and this and all that really just kind of ruined the series, because before it was always about how strong they could become through their own, hard work and strength and everything. But now it's like, it's just God Ki. How do you quantify God Ki? I don't know. You can't even say it's through the forms, because the Super Broly movie looks so good. Don't get me wrong, but the logic makes no sense to me. And don't say, oh, but they did the same thing for the Z Broly movie. That movie doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, sure, whatever. The backstory for Broly was really weak. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of times Dragon Ball is also not really known for, like, epic storytelling. Like, I'm just being honest. But if you are going to justify, like, if you're going to go against Z Broly saying, oh, it was like the worst, like that movie didn't make any sense. How does Super Broly make any sense when you have two fighters, mind you, Goku and Vegeta, who are the strongest Saiyans at this point, quote unquote. They fuse together, and fusion has been used as a means to, like, increase their power exponentially, right? Because they can use it whenever they want. They just have to do the dance and bam, they're there. Tell me why, if God Ki is so powerful, why do they need, like, not even like Super Saiyan God 1. They need Super Saiyan God Blue, the strongest Super Saiyan God form, in order to beat Broly, who is quote unquote just a mutation, right? What sense does that make? it just it just I don't know. Like it just doesn't sit well with me because that just seems like lazy writing. Like that seems like you're trying your best to justify like just using this form. It's almost like saying like the god forms are the new Super Saiyan. But there's really no way of quantifying how strong god form is. You know what I mean? Like, at least with Super Saiyan, we had somewhat of an indicator based on who they could beat. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you were Super Saiyan, you could beat Frieza. Because that happened like twice. Literally, Goku beat Frieza in Super Saiyan, and then Trunks beat Frieza for a second time in Super Saiyan. But we had a creature, Cell, who had the cells of the Z Fighters and the Saiyans, who have already progressed to Super Saiyan, and is stronger than them. And that makes sense. Because Cell also had Frieza cells in him. He's like, I'm all of your worst enemies, including yourselves, in one being. And the Red Ribbon Army, that's also another thing. Like with Cell, it was like, okay, sure, whatever. But like with the superhero movie, I'm like, they need to stop this. Like, you have androids that you built that are strong enough to fight against Saiyans. Androids. Robots, bro. Literal robots. I know they're in this technologically advanced future, but it's like Gohan has to unlock this absurd new power in order to fight these guys. And they brought Cell back, but I feel like in the worst way. And then Piccolo, when I looked at that form, I was like, they literally just gave him a Super Saiyan form. They want to make this man a Super Saiyan so bad. When he's a Namekian. Namekian pride, like, bro. Like, Piccolo stopped being relevant in the Buu saga. He was literally just a teacher then because the fights and the opponents were going above his power level. But then all of a sudden, in this one movie, he's like, I'm strong enough to compete with the greatest now. I love Piccolo, don't get me wrong. But I feel like that's the worst way to introduce that. The worst way. And then you use the Dragon Balls in order to get even stronger. Like, dude, the Dragon Balls are not meant to be a power boost. Whenever they used the Dragon Balls, like when they used it for Goku to finish off Kid Buu, it was to restore his ki. Not make him stronger. Excuse me. My man was exhausted, so they like give him back his power. Okay, that's reasonable. That's like rewinding the time on his body. Because he already had the power. He was just exhausted. Anywho, I feel like I went into a whole rant. Even with Naruto and Boruto, like, I felt like as I watched Boruto, I'm like, this is just a rehashing of old Naruto, but just through the eyes of an ungrateful son. Like, and then aliens and all that. I'm like, the series doesn't make any sense anymore. But again, people die, they just love it. They eat it up and they're like, oh, Boruto's so good, or Dragon Ball Super's so good. And it's like, but it's still at essence the same thing. And again, I'm not saying to hate series or to dislike them. It is good to criticize something. Nothing is perfect. You're not going to sit there and tell me that Dragon Ball Super is perfect in every single way. Because if you say it's perfect, then you need to be more critical. Critical thinking is very, very important. You need to be able to question things, not just what's presented to you. Question stuff. That's how crime shows work. If you don't question things, then nobody gets caught. Crimes aren't solved. Like if everybody's just like, I'm just going to take what's given to me, then everybody's the same. Everything's the same. So, take this rant with a grain of salt, however you want to look at it. But here's the most important part. Series should be able to pass on with dignity. Do not keep something alive just because you want to keep the money flowing. Because at some point, it just becomes the question of why is this still around? Like, if Dragon Ball Z is still a thing 30, 40, 50 years from now, and we're all like in our wheelchairs rolling around trying to be, seeing Dragon Ball Z X 20,000 or whatever. And we're like, why is this still a thing? So, yeah, again, agree to disagree, agree to agree, have your own opinions, whatever, you can make them known. But that's just kind of my gripe with it. I'm burnt out with it, and I feel like it leaves room for exploitation. Because with Sparkling Zero, and one of the hosts, he was literally like, yo, he like put in our group chat, like, yo, they are charging for for some characters, like the new Daima characters or whatever. And I said, I knew that was going to happen. You want to know why? Because over the past couple of years, a good while, there's not been a Dragon Ball Z game that is released that you have not been able to buy complete. Hear me out. You have not been able to buy complete. I.e., everything like for like fighters, for example. Back in the day, like with Budokai Tenkaichi and everything, they released the game up until a certain point. As in, certain games only go up to the Cell Saga because that's all that was released and that's all we knew about. Once they got to the Buu Saga, there was a new game released with the old stuff, but the new stuff as well. That's typically how they marketed it. It was like, hey, here's this new game. It looks better, it plays better than this old game, but it also has new content as well. So you bought the game, you bought it because it had more of the story involved. Fast forward to Xenoverse 2, right? Now, Xenoverse 2 is original in its own story, but it still is the same story, just being retold in a new way. As in, you still go through the Saiyan Saga, you still go through the, Namek Saga, you still go through the Cell Saga, you still go through the Buu Saga. The only difference is you have your own original character who is contributing to the saga in their own unique way. And that's fine. I think that's cool. But you're still playing the same story. In essence, it's still Dragon Ball. It's still Dragon Ball Z. The only difference is with Xenoverse, and I think it's very true with this, it's a collectathon. It's like, I want to get all the cool moves, all the cool transformations, and everything I can so I can be the strongest Z fighter ever. Or Time Patroller. I played Xenoverse 2 up until a point, but eventually I got kind of bored of it. And I think a lot of people have. There was one YouTuber I used to watch. I still watch him now, but back then he used to play the heck. I think it was Syriax. He used to play the heck out of the Xenoverse series. That's what got me onto Xenoverse and really like playing ranked and all other stuff. But in essence, it is still just the same thing. It is still the Saiyan Saga, Cell Saga, Buu Saga, and whatever else they add afterwards. Now, hear me again. When you buy Xenoverse, you have a game. But in order to get the extra stuff, you hear me? The extra stuff, as in the cool new characters like Zamasu, the cool new characters and cool transformations like Legendary Super Saiyan, you have to pay for that. It is not complete because all that stuff they could have added in there or have added into a new game called Xenoverse 3 and released it all as a separate product. Same thing with fighters. Now, people may say, oh, but they have a complete edition you can buy. But is it complete? Because Xenoverse can still release stuff and you still have to pay for it. You catching my drift? Let's say, for instance, you buy Xenoverse 2 in the complete edition. It costs you, let's say, $120. That includes everything up until this point. Now, once the new Dragon Ball series releases, next year they release, hey, you want to buy the Dragon Ball Z Daima pack? It's worth $15. And like, okay, cool, I want the new characters. The show continues. They're like, hey, here's the next one. It's $25. So there's this vicious cycle of the game is never fully completed. And people think that's a good idea. I don't think it is. Now, granted, you don't need to buy the DLC, but let me also ask you this question. Are you going to play a game where everybody else has a clear advantage over you? In all seriousness, are you going to play a game if you play fighters and I put you in one seat and then I put somebody who has competed professionally in Dragon Ball Fighters tournaments? Are you going to feel like you're going to win? Probably not. Why is that? Because they have a clear advantage over you. Now let's have that same scenario. You're going online to play with Xenoverse. Now, granted, there is a lot of mechanics that go into it. Learning to perfect block, learning to dodge, learning move synergy and all that stuff. But let's say you just beat the main storyline. You're able to play ranked. And I think if you beat the main storyline, you can get up to like Super Saiyan 3 in Xenoverse. Like, I know there's all the packs. It's like really hard to know exactly what you get to. At a certain point, if you pick a Saiyan, like, there's Earthling, Namekian, and the Buu Saga and the Frieza Saga, or the not saga, but the race. But the point of it is you can only get up to a certain point. So let's say, for instance, you choose a Frieza character, right? And you're like, man, I want to make this character just like Frieza. So you call them Frozen or something, whatever. And you put all the Frieza moves on there. So you got Death Beam, you got all this other stuff. And then you go against somebody online who's bought all the DLC, including moves like Emperor Death Beam. Emperor Death Beam was like one of the things that really like pushed me off of Xenoverse, because it is a move that is so scummy. That is the worst move they've ever put in that game. Because 9 times out of 10, literally, it is based on how much ki you have. All they have to do is get you in this combo, power up, break your stamina, and then just you're dead. It is a touch of death type of move. And then you look at your screen and you look at your controller and you're like, okay, all I have to do is look out for that. But then they have a move that freezes you, that holds you still, that you've never seen before. You're like, what? And then bam, 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 you're dead. So the point of the matter is, even if you choose not to buy into what's being released, you are being left behind. You are at a disadvantage. Hear me out, listeners. Do not sit there and say, oh, I don't have to buy. Oh, I don't have to do anything. Unless it is a single player to yourself experience, you will pay for advantages because your opponent does. For fighters, some people are like, oh, but all you need is a good team and you're good and all. No, you need knowledge of all of the characters and what they can do. That's what you need. For example, when I played fighters, my team was like Android 16, Z Broly, and sometimes I switched between like Goku Black or like Super Saiyan Goku. That was my team. The first time I went up against a Kid Goku, I got destroyed. You want to know why? Because I didn't know what I was up against. You can't play any of the characters unless you buy them. You can't fight against them unless you have them. You can fight against them in, ranked and all that stuff when you're playing other players, of course. But like when you play like certain events and all the, you can only learn so much fighting against the computer. Fighting against a person is totally different. So I don't believe in this argument of you don't have to buy. There's a clear advantage when it comes down to it. There's a clear advantage between those who spend money and those who don't. Because if there wasn't, they wouldn't present those options to you. I'm just being honest. Dragon Ball Z games are the same. Now, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is like one of the few games that I would buy the DLC for because it is adding to the story. It is enhancing your single player experience because I don't have to. I don't have to buy that stuff. You don't need to buy it. You can play the core game in itself and be happy. That's what I did. But again, this idea that you have this choice. Because remember earlier I mentioned how Dokkan Battle YouTubers do something unintentionally. They show you what a unit can do at peak. And you're like, dang, I'm struggling to beat this event. And then they go into that event with that one character and they beat it. And you're like, wow, I need this character. So what do? The next time the character comes available, you spend all your money, every cent you have, trying to get that one character. And it's so sad because I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose. They're not doing it on purpose. They're just having fun in the game. I hope they are. I hope they're having fun with the game. But the reality of the situation is that their job as YouTubers is to show what the game can do. That is their job. To show what is capable. What is capable for somebody who invests time, all their resources, and everything into this game. I can guarantee you Dokkan would die quick if Dragon Ball Z didn't go into Super. Dokkan probably wouldn't even be around today, let alone Legends. Because with Bleach Brave Souls, the creator, the actual creator of Bleach actually makes characters. But I stopped playing that game because all the characters were literally just the same. It's just Ichigo with like just some new hollow parts or whatever. Don't get me wrong, I had fun with that game. But at its essence, it's just the same thing. And the essence of all anime games are just the same. They are built on the promise of eventually playing the character that you love personally. You get what I'm saying? Like, everybody's waiting for when Moro becomes available in Dokkan. I could care less. But I bet you when they do release Moro, I mean, with the anime or whatever, or they might just come up with their own thing, people are going to go crazy and it is going to be the top grossing. Like, when I see top grossing, you guys should not be proud of yourselves. Because all that says is we lined your pockets with a lot of money. That's all that says to me. And the same thing with fighters. Again, all of these, and I don't want to just pick on Dragon Ball Z because One Piece does the same thing. Now, One Piece doesn't have as many game releases as Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is up there when it comes to anime game releases. Like, One Piece has Dragon Ball Z in longevity, like beat in longevity and just story-wise. But Dragon Ball Z has One Piece beat badly in like the game department. And a lot of that is, I mean, I don't really know what that is. Because I remember there was One Piece Burning Blood, which was, I guess, One Piece Fighters. And I played it for a little bit. It was pretty cool. But again, they did the same thing. I love playing One Piece Pirate Warriors, especially the more recent one. And every time I play that game, because I play it on the PlayStation, right? Every time I play that game and I'm just playing, and then I look at the DLC characters. I'm like, Dragon Form Kaido, the new form for Luffy. And you lick your lips. They might be dry a little bit, but you lick them anyway. And you sit there and like, man, that would be so cool to play. Because they know what you want. Do not sit here and tell me that, oh, you don't have to buy them. And I don't buy them. Again, it is a single player experience and I do not have to spend my money on it. Because I'm not fighting against anyone. I'm not trying to prove anything. And I'm not trying to have, like, I'm not trying to be competitive. But it is very, very, tantalizing. I want to play as the new Luffy. I want to play as Dragon Form Kaido. Because I bet you those are the best characters in the game. Because they want to make sure that you get your money's worth. Or make you feel like you get your money's worth. You get what I'm saying? And we can't talk about that without talking smack about Naruto. Because Naruto also has a thing like every single one of these 3 has that game where it's like, okay, it has a lifespan because of what's being added to it. Dragon Ball Z has Xenoverse 2. One Piece has Pirate Warriors. Now, Pirate Warriors, sure, whatever, they can come out with a new one and so on and so forth. But the difference with Xenoverse is that it does have that online aspect and there's a lot more to do with it versus just the story. But One Piece doesn't really necessarily have something like Xenoverse, but that's okay. And then we have Shinobi Strikers with Naruto. Now with Shinobi Strikers, they're scummy too. Because they include all of your favorite characters from the original series and newer characters and all the good stuff. And from movies and all that. But what's really scummy is that they want you to pay for DLC in order to, number one, train under your favorite person. So that means, hear me out. You pay money for the best moves in the game. The best moves. You want to use a Matarasu? You got to pay for them. Yeah. You want to use like Sage Naruto's like giant Rasengan? You got to pay for them. And then to make it even worse, they have like these like scrolls. Literally just gambling. I want the best equipment. I want the best, kunai or sword or whatever. But you got to get the in-game currency. Long story short, again, and not Shinobi Strikers is very heavy on competitive play versus casual play. Because with casual play, you just play through the ranked missions. And once you're done, you're done. But you can always fight new opponents. You can always play on new teams. There's always new events, new builds to try. So what I'm saying again is that if you play these games and it's like, okay, I don't have to buy anything. But if it has that competitive component to it, you are incentivized to do that. And even as I said with Dokkan, you're incentivized to buy or spend money in order to get the new units. And there's no guarantee that you will. That's the one reason why I got turned off from Legends is because you'll spend a whole bunch of money and never get what you want. Now, Dokkan has changed to where there's like a pity system. So every time you summon, you get a certain number of like tokens. But the problem is with the tokens, it's like you get 10 every time you summon, right? But in order to get the new unit, you would have to get 300 of those tokens, right? Now, I'm no genius here. But in order to do that, you would have to summon 30 times, right? Now, each summon is like 50 stones or whatever. You would have to spend 1,500 stones in order to get the character that you want. And that's if you don't already get them during those summons. Because when I summon, I try to do it under the pretense that I will get them in the first few times. If I don't, then, I kind of back away. But there are those moments of weakness where it's like, okay, if I maybe just invest a little bit, I'll get what I want. That's gambling, bro. That is an addiction. Anywho, I feel like I rambled on pretty long for this episode, but I feel like this was really something I needed to get off my chest. The whole idea of a series needing to stick around longer than it needs to is both dangerous, not just for the fans, but for the series itself. As I've explained with Dragon Ball Z, even One Piece. Now, One Piece has the exception that it has not met its end, as in the end of the story has not been reached yet. Dragon Ball Z could have ended at multiple times. It could have ended after the Cell Saga. It could have ended after the Buu Saga. It could have ended with GT. But it didn't. It just kept going. That's what I mean. When a series is prolonged and it's like, okay, this new series is just going to explain away some things so it feels like it's connected. No. Hear me out. If you have to use the new series to dump all this exposition out in order to justify its existence, as in Dragon Ball Z, the foreshadowing of the Super Saiyan was foreshadowed since Vegeta was on the scene. So we knew it was going to happen eventually. And when it did happen, it was paid off. Even in Cell Saga, there was a hint that Super Saiyan could go to a higher level. And it did. And that was a payoff. Nowhere, even though you're like, oh, but they introduced the Supreme Kais and they loosely used God Ki. I mean, it could have just been regular Ki. Or it could have been magic. Magic has been established in the Dragon Ball series since Dragon Ball. Demons were introduced in the first series. So when they introduced Deborah, who's the king of demons, it's like, it makes sense because there were demons. There have always been demons throughout the whole series. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. When there were aliens like Pui Pui, it's like, oh, they're aliens. Like the Saiyans are aliens. Frieza was an alien. Everybody's an alien. So this character makes sense. But when you're like, we're going to introduce gods of destructions, angels, the literal God himself, and you're like, yeah, that's okay. No, it is not okay because it wasn't explained. It was not introduced. If you have to use your new show to justify your existence and everything that happened, then you're not needed. Now, am I saying that all Super is bad? No. But I feel like there's a lot of nuances and a lot of things that people are just brushing off or just sweeping under the rug because they're like, I like Dragon Ball Z. Anything Dragon Ball Z does, I'm going to love. And that is not a way to appreciate or value a series. If you value your car, for example, if you value your car and you want to value like a long car, you know, like a vehicle you want to buy, or like if you're like, oh, I'm a Honda person or I'm a Kia person or something. Let's say you buy nothing but Kias for the rest of your life. And like, I'll love the car as long as it's a Kia. But you go to dealership and the door's dented. The inside smells like wet dog. The backup camera doesn't work. But you're like, oh, it's a Kia, so it's fine. You look past that and you're like, in practical terms, listen, if you would not do it in real life, do not do it for series. Because again, no series is perfect. There are parts of Super that I actually enjoy. Parts of Super that I'm like, eh. And some parts of Super that I'm like, that's absolute trash. And I feel the same way about Z and about Dragon Ball. There are things about those that I feel never made sense. Things that kind of just flew over my head. And I'm like, but I say Super because that's the most recent. Like, if you asked me specifically about Dragon Ball, I couldn't really tell you. There are like a few things. But, you know, not everything. With Z, okay? There are a lot of things that I felt were, but, you know, I still loved it. Like, one thing I hate when people are like, "Oh, Goku's a bad dad," and I'm like, "In what way?" And they'll always point to like, "Oh, um, they, Goku wasn't there when Piccolo was training Gohan because Goku literally gave his life in order to hold Raditz down so Piccolo could finish him off. Goku knew that neither one of them could beat him, even together. So he needed a strong, concentrated attack in order to kill him. Goku dies, he goes to train, and Piccolo trains Gohan. When Goku returns, he immediately is thrust into a new battle. And then as he's fighting, he's still trying to keep his son safe. Everybody's alive. The only person who died was Nappa. And Piccolo, of course. Well, and I say nobody died when I'm like Tien, Yamcha, Chaozu. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But you get what I'm saying. Goku kept Gohan alive and Krillin. And then he was still injured from the fight. And then Gohan and Krillin went ahead to go to Namek to look for the Dragon Balls. And once Goku was recovered, he followed behind them. And then Goku showed up at the right time. And every single time Goku was not there, it was because he got beat up so much that he needed time to recover. Goku beat Frieza. Everyone thought he was dead. Even he thought he was dead, but he managed to get to another planet. And he was trying to figure out a way back home. And when he did get back home, he was there with his family. He was there with his family. And then he fell ill. And he was still there with his family. He was there for the entire Cell Saga until Gohan got a little too full of himself with Super Saiyan 2. He had to sacrifice himself to save everybody in the planet. And then Goku was dead. And people are like, Goku's a horrible father, when he's literally done everything for Gohan to keep him safe. He was harsh, but again, he was doing that because, again, he needed someone to be stronger than him in order to take over for him because Goku's not going to live forever. We see that. And Vegeta is the same way with Trunks. Like, you're going to be, the new Prince of Saiyans or whatever. Like, you're going to be my pride. Like, you are going to, take over when I'm not here. Like, Saiyans really care about their lineage, which is why their power levels are tested at birth to see, okay, like, is our child going to do a lot in life or not a lot? And we do it in our own, in our own world. We're like, okay, if this kid doesn't grow up to be a doctor, then they're useless. If they don't grow up and have an actual job or career, they're useless. I wasted my time and all that other stuff. And then we get to the Buu Saga, where Goku is still dead, mind you. He's still dead because he feels like because he's there, things happen. Bad things happen. And, he's still dead throughout the whole series. He's just given a day to like see everybody. He sees his family. He does all of that. And then after fighting for everybody and saving the universe, he is gifted with a new life and he is living with his family. Living with his family. And then we go to Super and then, whatever happens there. So, yeah. Again, this was kind of a rant episode. So we'll have more stuff to come for October. We have a few things in the works, spooky season, so we'll try to get some of that good stuff in there. But listeners, again, whatever you feel, let me know. If you're listening to this on podcast, make sure to like it, follow us, share it with people. Again, everyone's going to have their own opinion and their own views. This is just my view. This is my opinion of how I feel about this whole situation. Let me know what you guys think. Especially if you're on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on series like being prolonged and how you feel about like video games using that longevity to prolong their own means of making money. Because it is a real thing. Don't get me wrong. It is a real thing. Like, games will hold off on releasing a character because they're like, okay, the longer we can hold off on it, the more money we can make on, down the line. And if you don't believe me, go to Xenoverse, go to Steam, look up Xenoverse 2, and look up all the DLC characters that you can purchase. All of them. You'll never find a Dragon Ball Z game, any of recent time, that you can purchase complete. If there's DLC with it, it is not complete. But anywho, like, follow, subscribe, all the good stuff. Comment down below what your thoughts are. And until next time, listeners, peace out.